Can I see hands? Okay, cool. That's, by the way, something really interesting. When Yumi made this kind of, do you know the names kind of thing, I experienced Nigeria as a really community. So everybody here is like in families, and you seem to be really in communities more than us. So I think especially in Germany, but other are kind of isolated in small families. So I have my wife, and I have some connections still to my parents. I have more connections to my grandma, but here it's different. Here you rely on your family, right? That's what I understand. So it's interesting to see that when you come here isolated and you go back in your communities. I think you have to build this well. This is because this is those people here share your interest. And I must say, I'm super impressed by all of you. This is how to say this in a good way. I come from a really luxury situation, you know. But what effort you have to do to make your living and to come here, and oh my God, you all have my highest respect. A lot of energy, and that's something I see. But I love the positive. If you overcome, you have to have a lot of energy. This is cool. So it's a bit overwhelming. I get, it's a bit emotional for me. So I'm. Okay. So what before we jump in, I want to give context. So. Make a game and that's it. It's a little bit, you have to invest a little bit. So I want to give a little bit context to what we do, but not that you get this context. So what's the problem with making a good game? We yesterday made a list of things that are important, and we realized already, oh my God, this is actually a lot. So how do we do this? So first of all, we have to realize the idea is not the game. Everybody has ideas, a lot of ideas. You know, you can ask nearly everybody who ever played a game, he has an idea how to make it better. Okay, so the idea is not the game. A lot of people have a lot of ideas, but only some of those ideas get articulated. And I will also talk a little bit about tell someone else what I want to do. You know, you don't have it yet. You don't have it. You haven't made it. So you have to explain to someone else, this is the game I would like to do. Okay? And if you don't do something like, oh, let's do the same and copy it, if you want to do something new, then you have to express yourself in a certain way. And that's difficult when it comes to interactive media. You know, I can write down a book. It's even easier. And then making a movie is a bit more complex because you have more people involved. And you have, but you still can write a script and can understand what the story is, etc., etc. So I can prepare that. But with games, it's different. We have the stupid players. They are interacting with the game and they are doing stuff you might not expect. So that's a challenge. You have to take the player and all the interaction in account, and that's super difficult because you don't know how players react. Okay, so. Some of them, and the best way to do this is to make prototypes. I made a small version of the game, really tiny, small thing, the idea what this game should be. It's a really good way to express what you want to do. And the prototype is maybe rough and it doesn't look, and it doesn't have all the features your game wants to have. But the advantage is that I can show someone a prototype and say, this is the game I want to do. It's a small portion of it. So that's what we want to do today. Some of those prototypes become games, not all of them, because some are crap. Sometimes you do a prototype and say, okay, yeah, it was a nice idea on paper, but it's not fun at all. Sometimes you keep doing and trying and trying. I see teams that are actually think they have a good idea and they tried and tried, but still it's not a good idea. And this is pretty hard to realize. So only fewer of those prototypes become games. Then even fewer gets even published. I mean, this is another thing people forget. If you made your game, to publish it, to make it available for people, this is complete other, it's also another skill set. Like, I'm talking not only about marketing, the hands-on things you have to do. For example, if you want to put it on Steam or something, you have to make the artwork, you have to make the text, and it has to be nice, it has to be right, and then the people have to understand. So this is a complete own art, so to say. So, and I could even nowadays add a really, really tiny bar here, doesn't fit from the dimension, saying what games are played. Because currently there's so much stuff coming out on all platforms. If it's mobile, if it's even console, there's so much stuff coming out. So people have so much stuff to choose from. So it's important to stand out, to have something that's standing out. And I think you in Nigeria have an opportunity to make something for your own culture, you know, that can already stand out. As you told me yesterday, there's not much games that have Nigerian culture in it. So this is an opportunity. So you have an audience who would like maybe to play something with own origin culture and not our Western shit. Okay. Oh, but by the way, when I say Western shit, I should give some context. In my whole life, I always try to do games that have a little bit of education in it. So the game I told you yesterday about is Settlers, is one of the games I did for years. So it's this building up strategy game and has logistics. So it's playing in the Middle Age, and there's a woodcutter, and he's getting wood, and then it's getting to a sawmill, and then you have to get to build houses, and so you grow. So this is a game I made for years, and I'm super happy that it's even used in schools sometimes to teach kids about simple logistics. So how does logistics work? So I'm not so much into shooting and violent games. I personally like games that really have a new experience, a new flavor. And I think one disadvantage we have in the whole world is the conception that games are for 16 years old Americans shooting others. So but I think it's a misconception. Games are so much more than that. Okay? But this is a big market, so it is always perceived like that. So even in my country, a lot of people think this is games. You go to Gamescom, and the biggest halls are about Call of Duty and all that, which is nice, it's okay. But I love the indie hall, where you have games from 40 different countries with completely different flavors. This is what I think games are. Okay, so when I say Western shit games, I'm talking about this always the same, we shoot people. I can't see it anymore, to be honest. But this is my personal opinion. So, okay, so let's lose it. So when you want to describe your game, when you start your game, let's think a little bit how you describe stuff. So let's use a metaphor. So if you want to describe a tree. This is easy. I can say this is roots and this is trunk and this is the leaves, and I can describe how the leaves look like, etc., etc. That's something natural to us humans. This is what we do. I can describe this chair. I can describe things. You know, I can always describe. This is who we are. We are in the 3D world. We are running around and we have objects around and we can explain objects and all that. But the problem is, this is just a snapshot. Take a look at this tree. This tree is just in this time. It looks like that, but the world is actually not like that. So it's changing. Okay, we have. This is when I yesterday took this presentation and tried to adapt it a bit. I just realized you don't have 4 seasons. So we have 4 different seasons with a tree. You don't have that. So this is kind of funny to see. I cannot use my metaphors. I cannot use my senses of games, because I asked already some of you the last 2 days about some games, and it's like, no, I don't know that. And for us, it's like super huge game, and this is my reference. You know, this is a big challenge for me. So, but we have 4 seasons. So we have spring, we have summer, we have autumn, and we have winter. So right now it's winter. So it's -2 degrees where I am, and the trees are changing, and that's much harder to describe. How do you describe the transition of a tree? You know, I mean, you can use a lot of paper and write stuff down, but this is what I meant with dynamic and interactive is harder It's harder to do. Even more chaotic when you take a look at the lifetime of a tree. So how it's, is it my PC that's doing this? This bling bling? No? Okay. So you have lifetime, so it starts somewhere, then it grows, it gets old, and then it dies. This is even chaotic, you know? That's hard to describe. You understand the difference? So it's easy to describe one thing in the current snapshot. That's what we are used to. We are living in the moment. We are not multidimensional beings that can see like a timeline, you know what I mean? And with games, it's a little bit like that. So we can take the real world as an example. So I can say, okay, we have different layers in the world. So we have, on the bottom, we have something like physics, okay? So the basic fabric of the universe is physics. And on top of that, we have chemistry, and then we have biology, and then we have the mind, which is much more abstract, okay? And you can see a game like that. So we can, for a game, that means, okay, at the bottom, we have physics. And we have something like people and vehicles and stuff, and then we have the missions or the situations you are in or your goals, and then we have the big story and the game arc, okay? So this is nice to adapt and to think of because it's more natural for us. And then you can see, okay, those parts are these entities I can describe. So I can describe a vehicle, I can describe the physics. But what's more interesting is actually what's in between. So the network, the dynamics in between. And this is pretty hard. So try to describe something like that on paper. This is hard. So it's better to describe it with prototypes. So that's the difference between and dynamics. Okay. I realize, and that helps a lot when making games when you think like that. It helps, at least it helps me. So let's describe dynamics with diagrams. So there's a better way than writing down words. I come from a past where for my first game I wrote 500 pages book how the game should be. I think nobody in the team read it besides the producer and me. And it was always not up to date because it changed too fast. We had meetings and we discussed, and so it was a mess. So describing it in text is not a good idea, but describing dynamics with diagrams is a good idea. So do you know the game Pong? We're talking about the first game. So you get Pong? Pong? Who doesn't know Pong? I show a video, okay? Then just to be super sure. Let me see. So this is Pong, one of the first games in the world, if not the first. So it is a ball going back and forth, and it's like tennis. And each player has a paddle. Oh wow, and it's loud. But you get it, right? So this is Pong, super, super easy. But I personally really like, those old games to use to describe basics, because games have changed and they have a lot of animation now and a lot of stuff on top, but the basic interaction is still the same. I have someone who's giving an input, there's something moving around, there's some scoring, there's some logic behind that, that's it. So let's describe Pong. We can describe first like the entities, like we did with the trunk and stuff. So we can describe a bat or the pedal. We can describe the ball. We can describe the wall. And we can describe the goats on the other side. So we can do that. And but the interesting thing is, what are the relations between those? And now we could write down stuff like, when the ball hits the wall, then blah, blah, blah. This is exactly what we do. So we can make this kind of matrix and saying, okay, here we have bat, ball, wall, goal. So what do they do to each other? So the ball and the bat, then there is a deflection. Same as with wall, and when the ball hits the score, it's a goal, it's a score. And when the bat hits the wall, it stops. Okay? And the goal and the wall and the goal and the bat never interact. Okay? Make sense? This is pretty easy, and that's the reason why I like those old games. Those old games help us to learn, and then we can make more complex things from that. But this makes so much sense. And then say, okay, the wall ball deflect event is a physical formula how he bounces back. So we can describe that. So this is a fabric. So this is a physics. So Pong is very simple. So we just have this event. So we always have a ball hitting something, and then we do something. Really easy. But some games are more complex, and then it comes to something we call states. So think about your day. So do you have an idea what states are? Yeah? No? Okay, think about your day. So at the morning, you're still sleeping, and then you're washing yourself. This is a state. And then drinking might be a state, and then working is a state. Okay, so I can say my day would look like that: sleeping and washing. I can do in parallel, and then working, and then I'm working. So it's one of those states, and then event happening that's bringing me to another state. For example, I'm sleeping, and when I wake up, I got into the state of confused, which happened to me this morning. Because I was not sure where I am. It's really happened. I woke up and I was like, oh, where I am. It took me some seconds to realize. Okay, so you get that? So you have states and you have a transition, which is an event. Pac-Man, do you know Pac-Man? Who don't know Pac-Man? Okay, cool. So everybody knows Pac-Man? Or are you just the shy people who don't raise hands? Okay. So Pac-Man is also a good idea to take a look at because it's a little bit more complex. So I have Pac-Man, and he has a score, and he has lives. And then I have the environments, which consists of wall, and there's a ghost space, and there's a portal where I can go on the other side. And then I have the ghost itself. This is my beautiful drawings. As you can see, I'm an absolutely gifted artist. And then I have the dots he's eating, and then I have this energizers where Pac-Man becomes the hunter, and then I have these bonus tokens I have to gather. So I can describe all that. But the interesting thing is that Pac-Man has multiple states. So the ghosts have different states. So they either try to hunt Pac-Man, or when I eat this energizer, they are trying to get back to the ghost, and you are hunting them. Or they got eaten, and then they are eyes, and then they're going back to the base, and when they reach the base, they become ghosts again, and they go. And if you take a look how the AI is done for this ghost, how is the ghost behaving, there are even more states. I just discovered this 4 weeks ago because I wanted to make a Pac-Man, and I was looking a little bit how stuff is done in Pac-Man, and I'm so totally stunned how sophisticated and simple at the same time the AI of the ghosts are. Because the 4 ghosts in Pac-Man, they have different behavior. So there's the red ghost who's trying to get to your position. So he's just tracking your position and trying to get there. There's another ghost which tries to project where you are going. So it's like they get the input where you're going, and then they're projecting it, and then the ghost is trying to get in front of you. And then there's the third ghost who is using the red ghost and the Pac-Man position and projecting where you're going. So it's like a line, and there he's trying to go. And I love the fourth ghost. He's totally stupid. He's trying to get to you, to your position, like the red one. But if he gets too close to you, he's going to the left bottom corner. And you can see this, there is kind of not speed runs, but there's people who get the high score of Pac-Man, because you can get a high score because the game is breaking on level 200 something. The level is breaking because of a bug. So there's a maximum amount of points you can get. And there's a video online where you can see some people trying to get this 3 million whatever record. And they are using this, they are exploiting this AI. And this is so cool to see that he's hiding in a corner, and then you see this stupid ghost going to Pac-Man and going back, and going to Pac-Man and going back. But if you play it normally, you don't realize that. You just have the feeling, wow, the ghosts are like trying to trap me in. This looks completely intelligent. So the guy who made that, I'm super stunned how he made that. This is pretty awesome stuff. And we're talking about 30-year-old games. So you can learn a lot from those games. So I encourage you to take a look at those old games because they are much more simple. They are much easier to analyze. They are much easier to understand, and it's good for to go through that states of the Pac-Man. But before that, we can make the same metrics and say, okay, how do everything we have in the game interact to each other? We can say, okay, when Pac-Man hits a ghost, there is a Pac-Man death event. And when the Pac-Man eats, because the ghost is in another state, then it gets gets changed into the I mode, etc. So I can do this, and then I can use flowcharts to explain stuff. So this is also good for when you describe an interface, but for the logic here, it's good. So I can just have a flowchart where we go through. So it looks like this. So Pac-Man is in the state of being hunted. So if a ghost, if he collides with a ghost, it's a death event, and then we take a look, does he have lives back? Does he have still 3 lives, or doesn't have any lives back? And when he doesn't have lives back, then the game ends. Otherwise, the level gets reset. And if he eats the balls and energizers, then he becomes a hunter, and then there's a timer, and when the timer is down, he's going back to his other state. And when he's keeping eating energizers, he keeps being in the hunter state. Okay? This is a really easy description about Pac-Man without writing a lot of text and trying to explain it a lot. And the thing is, this is actually already programming. So in the moment you reach this, it is not a big step anymore to have a language understanding the programming language, even if it's visual scripting like Blueprints or if it's C++, to apply this and to make this. So this is pretty cool, especially for people who want more on the game design side, wanting to make the games and the rules and all that. It is good to reach this level, because if you are like, oh, I want to have only ideas and I write these papers with a lot of ideas and then a programmer has to do it, if you can't reach this level to explain to a programmer what to do, he has to fill the gaps. Okay, so this is, I think, is important. So here's a ghost flow chart. So there's a hunter. If Pac-Man eats an energizer, they get hunted, and there's a timer going back. So this is the same thing. And if they are going, if they are eaten, so if they meet, if they overlap with Pac-Man at the time when they are hunted, they are becoming eyes, and they're going back to base. And when they are there, they are hunters again. Okay, so super easy description. So, but the best way to describe it, and now we come to the hands-on part, is doing with prototypes. Oh, I have 2 prototypes with me. I did from my past. This is a really old one. Let me see, does it start? Yeah. So this is a prototype where you place buildings, and then when they are finished building, they have a radius, and then you can build another building within this radius. So it's a test about how you can expand a settlement, for example. And then we try to make different players. So the second player can build in the line of sight. So there is fog and you don't see. When you place a building, then it gets revealed, and then you can place everywhere where you can see something. And then there's a third player where we tried something with the length of roads. So we say, okay, each house brings a maximum length of roads, of a road. And then you have this network you can building. And we wanted to test how different expansion models work in the game. So we did this prototype, and then we were sitting in front of it and saying, yeah, like you look a little bit confused. It's like, yeah, it's nice, but what's the point? So this is 20 years ago when I made this with a programmer. So we were 2 people working on that, and at the end, actually there were no real outcome. So this was a bad, I wanted to show you a bad prototype. So this is a bad prototype, okay? The bad prototype I did, and the reason it was bad is it was pretty unclear what our goal was. So it was less like, yeah, let's test out how to have different expansion models for a strategy game. That's not enough. This is pretty unclear and pretty vague. So at the end, you can't say, have we achieved this? You could say, yeah, we achieved this. We made different expansion models. But does it make any sense? No, it's not judgeable. Nobody can say, this is cool or this is not cool. You cannot even say it. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. It has no impact on production. So we spent actually a month or 2 on this with 2 people working on that, and it didn't have really an impact. And one reason it didn't have an impact is, and that's something we will do in the prototype today as well, as a first thing, we were not aware what the real camera in the game will be. How much does the player see? Has so much influence on that. So here we had this super abstract view, okay, but we didn't in account how far can the player zoom in and zoom out. So it makes a completely difference if at the end I can only see this, okay, and then I have to scroll around, then this whole thing makes no sense. So the, sorry? That's fine. If you have anything, and just, so it's, this makes no sense. This makes absolutely no sense. So I'm not proud of it, but I'm proud of it because I have done it and I figured out this is shit. You shouldn't do this. So, and there were also no playtests possible. We couldn't sit someone in front of it. We tried that. We couldn't sit someone in front of it and say, play this and tell us what you think. We did that. People were sitting in front of it and say, yeah, nice. You did 2 months of work, nice. So you can't say anything meaningful to it. And because of that, it had no iteration. So it was not like, hey, we have a cool prototype, so we learned something, so let's change it and make it better. And it was not possible at all. So that was a bad prototype. I will show you a good one. And this is one from real life. So I built hand puppets. So this kind of Muppet-like hand puppets, you know. It's a strange, I don't know why this happened, but it's a habit of mine. I love building hand puppets. And I wanted to make one of a game. Do you know Day of the Tentacle from LucasArts? It's a point-and-click adventure, pretty old. No? No, it's fine. Day of the Tentacle, LucasArts, it's also a pretty old game. But there is this tentacle with arms, and it's getting evil because it got arms, and now it thinks it can have the power of the world. And I wanted to build this for a friend. And I found this fabric, which was completely in the colors, but this fabric was actually expensive. And I was about not to buy it because it was so expensive, and I thought, okay, I make a small prototype before I waste something on, you know, then I test and it's not working, and then I have wasted valuable fabric. So I used other fabric, and it's this really rough prototype in 1 hour. I stitched it fast together, and it was like with glue and all, so it was not, it's not really operational. You see the one arm is already falling off. Oh, I lost this TV. So as said, the fabric was expensive, so step by step I did this prototype, and I iterated this prototype with sizes and all, and I gradually made this puppet. So at the end it looks like that. And I was super proud of it, and I still have it, and I still use it. And you see that one arm is going up and the other arm is going down. This is something I figured out as a prototype. I wouldn't have done this just by you know, starting making it and thinking I'm doing the final product. So that was really cool because I had a clear goal. I could rapidly test. I could reduce my production costs because I didn't waste any fabric that was expensive. And it helped me a lot making decisions. So that's the reason why I think prototypes are absolutely great. So yeah, so it fills the gaps of stuff you don't know. And even after making games for 20 years, I can tell you each time I start a game again, I have to be humble and saying, okay, I have to prototype this stuff, even if I think I know what I'm doing, you know, because in the context of a new game, it might be completely different. And I misjudged my skills each time when I start a game. So each time I think, oh, no, I know this. Let's not just start it and then we figure it out. And each time it was like, maybe we would have tested it before. The more experience you get, the more you can identify how far you have to prototype and how far you have. So I want to do Breakout in Unreal Engine. Do you know what Breakout is also? I think it came after Pong. So it's also a pretty old game. I showed you a video so you get an idea. So here we are. This is Breakout. It's 1 year older. It's 1 year younger than me. So it's a very simple single-player game where you have this pedal and you have you have a ball moving around and you hit these blocks and each block gives points. So this is a pretty nice kind of prototype for us because we don't need much assets for it. We can do it from scratch, and everything we have player input. We have a little bit of game logic. And we have a display. We have to display how much points we got. So this is pretty nice. So I would like to remake this in Unreal Engine now with you today. And I'm pretty convinced that we can finish it today. As a okay? You okay with that? So as I said, it's not a super fancy game. It's not about animation and all that. But I'm sure if you got that, you got the basic understanding how to make a game in Unreal, and then you can expand from that. And something I like with prototypes, I try to first make something I'm familiar with, and then the cool ideas actually come when making the prototype, instead of sitting there and thinking about the game. Okay? So let's see how we do this. So I made myself a list here that I don't forget anything. So okay, as said, if you try to follow, it's fine. I try to make some breaks, and then we take a look if you get stuck somewhere. Because my problem is a bit, I used to do this stuff pretty fast. So maybe much too fast for you. So you have maybe to slow me down. I try to make a break in certain moments, and then you have to be honest and tell me I got stuck. And then I can come around. The thing is, you're quite a lot of people, and I'm alone. So I try my best. I don't know how this will work out. So this is really the first time I'm doing this this way. But I hope but if you don't want to follow by a PC, I think it's completely okay. I do it in a pace that you can make notes, you can make pictures, so you can recreate it for you at home. And I think this is on YouTube as well, so you can watch it again later. By the way, for the people, I just realized yesterday that sometimes for you it's hard to get even the engine because it's 18 gigabyte or something like that. I have it here, so after the class or in the break, feel free to come here with a hard drive and I give you the version, okay? So I just realized yesterday that this is a thing here. Okay? Are we cool? Do we try this? Yeah. Are you up for this? Yeah? Okay, wow. This will be an experience. So the version I would use is 4.231 or 4.23 preview. That's not important. You can even use 22 or 21. Which version do you have right now? 20? 23? Who has 23? 23? 23? 22? 21? Okay, that all works. So we don't do some fancy things that is pretty new. I do something you can do even with an older version. There might be some slight changes happening, but we will see when we go. Okay, so what I do is I just launch this. It's pretty small, right? Can you see? Okay, so first of all, before we launch, I will show some stuff in the launcher that's maybe interesting to know. So the launcher is also the store and Fortnite and all that, but there's this Unreal part. And some things that are really interesting is here under Learn, you have, let's wait. Oh, maybe my internet is... Okay, what I try to show under Learn, you have something that's called Content Example. That is a project you can download, and it has different levels. And in each level, there is someone from Epic did an example for nearly every part of the engine. It's not really prominent, but I think it's one of the best sources to learn. I'm not so much the learner by YouTube, so the YouTube stuff, it's hard to find something that has a good rhythm, or the voice is annoying, or it's a 12-year-old kid shouting all the time. So finding good tutorials is kind of hard, and I don't like the flow of that. But what I like is tinkering around with it by myself. So just get my hands in and then do stuff. And the content example is pretty good for that. I'm not sure why it's not loading, because I should have internet here. Let me restart them. So content example it's called. You can download it, and then you have a project with different maps, and then they have everything about animation or how blueprints work, and there are little stands, and you can I have it actually on my PC. If it's not loading now because of internet issues, I can show it. There we go. So it is down here, and it's called content examples, this one. So this is super, super helpful in my opinion to get used to the engine, because there you have different rooms, and you can go through it. I will show that later, maybe shortly, before we end. So this is a good source. And there's a marketplace, and every month there's stuff for free on the marketplace. So if you don't have assets and stuff, you can get stuff for free. So right now there is landscape stuff. Here's a player build system where you can build houses with it. I think it looks a little bit Fortnite style. So here you have an environment with zero gravity. You have someone who made some portals. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can build up on. Some of the stuff is maybe not in the way you need it, so be careful, but it's a good start also to learn. So especially the free ones are nice to download and check out. So this is also nice. So and then you have the library with all your stuff. So for example, I download a lot of those free stuff. That's the reason why I have a full library here. But for example, I use currently this one to build an own small project because I'm not an artist, and I really like how this looks like. So I was inspired actually by browsing through the marketplace, and I was like, oh, this is nice. So I bought it, and then I was beginning to make a small game out of this, just for fun. So this is also inspirational, and learning-wise, this is a pretty nice place to be. And as it is free, each month you have stuff for free. This is really, I think it's worth checking out. And then you have the different engine versions. You can even have really old ones here. You can download new ones here. So as said, I will use this one. 24 is a new one. I think it's coming out really, really soon, within the next 1 to 2 weeks. So now let's get to start. I'm a bit nervous. That's the reason why I'm walking around this before starting. Okay, so what we want to do is we can either open an old project or we can start a new one. And when you start a new one, you can choose right now between Blueprint and C++. And normally you have templates. I haven't installed them because I have a really small version here. But you have, the templates are also really helpful. Actually, I should show them. Give me a second. I forgot the template. So Epic did for a lot of different game modes, did already kind of a super, super small, I wouldn't even call it game, but it's kind of a template. So when I start here, the new version, I think I have the templates there. And there's something for third person or side scrolling or top down. So it has already like a super small scene set up, and this is also good to learn. So I advise, I have someone who is also really new to the engine, a friend of mine, and I advise them to take a look first at the puzzle one, because the puzzle one is super, super simple. So you have a description. So the puzzle one is, I use this also to learn how to deploy on Android. This is a good one. You just touch the things and it's counting up, and that's all it does. But as it is such a simple setup, it's good to learn. So you can check out how is this done, how is touch done, how is the color changing done, so you have that. You have rolling, you have side scroller, you have 2D side scroller, you have third person, you have a top down view, then you have something twin stick shooter like where you have 2 sticks and you fly around sorcery, you have something with vehicle, and here you have someone asked yesterday about virtual reality. There's a template for it where you can start, where you have everything already set up. So you just start this. There's not much you can do. I think you can just teleport or something like that. That's all you can do. But it's a really good start for you. Especially when you don't know the engine, it's good to start a game with this template and then go from there. Okay, so what we do is we start from blank. And then your interface looks different. This is a new one. Then you choose if it's blueprint or not. You can change all that also later. So it's not like you have to decide now and then you work on your game for 2 days and then you realize, oh my God, I made the wrong changes, I have to do it again. It's not like that. So it's just your initial setup, and then you can change later as you wish. So we do blueprint, we do maximum quality, we don't do ray tracing, we do for now for desktop and console. I could set that to mobile, and he's already setting up some stuff for mobile. And then there's something called starter content. You have that too, and starter content is they get some assets already loaded in your project, like a chair and some lighting stuff, etc., etc. We also don't do this now. I want to have as clean project as possible. Breakout Nigeria. Okay, this is Breakout Nigeria is an interesting title. Did I misspell it? No, I hope. So, okay, here we are. This is the editor. So what you can see, I first try to make you comfortable. Oh, okay, can you raise hands? Who has already used Unreal at least a bit, opened it and tinkered it? Who? Can I see hands? Okay, who have not seen it at all? Okay. So I try to serve you all, okay? I try my best. So first of all, I give you a short overview about the different tabs. So what we see here is, it's called Word Outliner. It's what it is in the scene right now. So when I start the game, I have this little scene, which is, here I have a floor, I have atmospheric, fog, and all that. I don't go too deep into that, but here is a list of stuff that's there. So I can either, I can fly around here, holding right click and then using VSAD. So you see the game, this engine comes from gamers. So it has classical first person controls. So I can hold right click and then I can scroll around here with a mouse look. So it's really like flying around spectator mode in any of those games. So that's the first thing. So here I have my viewport. I have a lot of different options. We will see some of them during the workshop. And then here you have as well the list. So I can either select something here and move it around, or I can select it here, and then here I have details. Oh, by the way, I made this setup for myself now. Maybe your stuff is on other positions, okay? You have to look for where your world outliner is. It's maybe on the right side. This is my personal kind of setup I personally like. So you don't have to have the same layout. So, but you have somewhere the details panel. So if you select something, then you have details of stuff. And this is already, that's one reason why people have the feeling, oh my God, it's a lot. There's a lot of work to do, because it has already a lot of stuff built in. So you have to get used to some of the stuff first. But I can assure you, if you do, it's really powerful. But the learning curve is a bit steep at the beginning. So I have this here. I can, for example, as said, I can change the location by moving it around here. I can switch here between something like, okay, I rotate stuff, or I scale stuff, or I can move stuff. Okay, but what I also can do is the same stuff is happening here. So you can maybe, when you take a look here, 100, if I move it here, it's changing. So I could also change it here. I could also enter numbers here. And the same for the rotation. And the same for the scale. So, you know, can make crazy stuff here. So that's one thing. And then this is called a static mesh. So this is an object, and this object has this this kind of form. So this is yeah, this is a static mesh here. And then it has material, how it looks like, so which color it has, etc. But we will go to that. So basically, here's a world outliner. Here is our scene view of the map. Here's the details. And then there's something called world settings. So your world settings might not even show up if you start the first time. Then under Windows, you have here a lot of stuff you can enable. And there's something called world settings, for example. So if you click that, then it comes up. So you have some of the settings that are affecting the whole world. Like, for example, your gravity, that you have gravity in your scene, and how much is the gravity. That would be a world setting. And then, but I don't go into that, you have something called levels, and this might also not coming up directly, then you can choose here. And levels just mean you can put levels into levels. So if you make a big world, for example, you can have one level that is doing the logic, and then one level that has light, and then one level. That's also about for collaboration. So if you work with a lot of people and you have someone who is into making all your lights and making it look pretty, you might want to separate that from other parts of the engine, from other parts in the game. Like you have a level with all the logic, when you can move around and have navigation and all that. Because it's maybe two people working on it, then it's good to split this up. So for this, you can have different levels in one level. But this is also not important for us right now. So, and here on the top, you have something like save or your source control. I talked yesterday about like general settings, blueprint stuff. And if I move this a little bit back, then I have also the play button. So if I start here, I'm in play mode. So now it's like I would play it, but this is not really a game. So I'm just here and just a camera. So there's not much. And on the bottom here, I have the called content browser. So here is let's switch off this for now. So here I have the list of content I have. So like my blueprints will go there. What I talked about yesterday was a framework. So if I put sound in the game, if I put assets, other graphic assets in the game, it would be here, and I can have different folders. So that's basically for now the absolute basic setup. So what I want to do is I want to open a new level, and then I have different options. There's, for example, a VR basic one where you can already, when you say you make a VR game, where you can begin to test. We do something super simple. We do complete empty level with nothing in it. We don't save the current one. So now we have completely darkness. So here's nothing in there. As you can see in the world outliner, I have nothing. I have nothing placed. I have not even light. Nothing. If I would place now something, and that's something I forgot, you have the modes, which is usually just on the left side if you open it normally. Then you have different things you can place. Like we could place, for example, a cube. So here's a cube. So, and I forgot to put it back to it was put on unlit. So I put it on lit. So currently there's no light. There's a cube. I can even select it. It's there, but I can't see it because there's no light. So the first thing we should do is make some light. Okay, so we have different lights. So here's different lights, and we want to emulate something like the sun. So we want a direction light. So there's big light coming from one direction. So we put this in, and then you can suddenly see, oh, there is something. And as the sun is coming nearly from above, I can only see one side. So if I would now change the rotation of the sun, you see, if I change it, I can, you see, it's changing the shading. So it's changing from where the light is coming and what is more in the shadow. What I can do to this light, and we should do, is when it comes to lighting in games, it's a complex thing. So we fake a lot. So the real light is really complicated. Light, and then it's bouncing from this ground, and this ground is brownish, so it gets brownish color, and it's bound. This is too complicated to have all the rays calculated. Calculate this once. It takes a long time to calculate, and then we put it into the objects. So the object knows where the shadow is. So this is called static. And then we have mobile, movable. And when we put light to movable, it means we could move it around in real time. The shadow quality might not be as good as we would bake it in. So especially for architecture or something like that, they used to have this super precise light, pre-calculated light. When it comes to games like only having a dynamic light. So there's no textures baked. There's nothing baked in. So this is important, and we for our game we don't care. We don't have any issues with dynamic light. We have only one light in the scene. We have not complex situations. So we put this on movable. So now we have a cube and we have a light, and that's all we have for now. You can follow so far? It's okay? Good. So let's get rid of the cube again. We don't need this cube. So what I said before. So let's put this on 0, 0, 0. Let's see where our world origin is. So here's something you see in the bottom. Here's a coordinate system. So x goes there, y goes there, and z goes up. You could say it is a left-handed system. Okay. Yeah, it's actually Unreal is really strange because it has Z up. It's the only engine that has Z as up. Most games don't have Z as up because most games have right-handed system or have Y as up. Yeah. So it is like this, and it's really funny. Tim Sweeney, who was the original, is still the owner of the company and built the original engine version. There's a Twitter from last year where he said, "I'm sorry, I was young." so it is a bit different, but actually I personally like it. But because for me, I come from making 2D games top down. Okay, so I did top down games. So our maps looked a little bit like a real map. So you look from above, and then you have X, and then you go up, and that's Z. So for me, it makes actually more sense than many other ones. But I can see that people have trouble understanding this because Maya, 3ds Max, Unity, and they are all also different. So this is something that's important to understand, that those dimension is different in each of the environments. This is no problem nowadays anymore because most of the importers, when you put stuff in or when you export stuff, they have that setting. So you can say, okay, Y is up, Z is up, whatever. You can configure that. But you have to be aware of, and you should not fight the system, because there are convenient functions where you can ask an actor in the game saying, give me your forward vector. And if you import your stuff that the forward vector is to his side, then you get the wrong one, okay? So this is important to understand. So as said, I personally prefer the Unreal way, but that comes really from me doing top-down strategy games. The other axis that Z is going actually, that Y is up and Z is going into the screen comes from, if I would have come from side-scrolling games, that would make completely sense, you know? Then you look from the side on your character, and then you have X and Y, and you move in X direction, you know, to the side scroller. And then when we moved from 2D to 3D, you go into the depths of the scene. No? So it makes sense depending from where you come from. It's just something I want to be. Okay, so we have ZXY. And now I put the sun in the middle of the scene, so it's location 0, 0, 0, just for orientation. Another thing, when I do a prototype, you want to be fast, yes, but you want also to be clean enough, I would say, with the stuff you are doing, because you will regret it if you do like just smashing it together. It gets harder and harder iteration. So try to be a little bit clean and a little bit like conscious what you're doing. So I put the light there, and then I will put it up a bit because at 0, 0, 0 I want, this is the origin of the world here. So this is the real origin of the world, you know. So I want to make a playfield. And what I told you was my first bad prototype. Something I learned there is each time I make a new game, I first try to build the scenery, put a camera in, so I get a feel for the character. If you're really close, you need more detail. If you're far away, you need less. I was an artist once in a project where we also didn't define the camera precise enough. And he took makes this cathedral, and we were all complaining why it's taking so long, and he making it from all angles looking super beautiful. And it actually was used in marketing shots later. It was one of the best buildings we had in the game, but production-wise, it was insane. In the time he other artists did 3, 4, 5 houses, and we were not angry with him because actually years later I asked him about that. I said, you are normally really fast. The cathedral thing, I still don't get why it was so complicated. He said, yeah. So you were like, you said, looking to for that reason, I really think about the camera and what's the plan. It doesn't have to be stop down and then do 10 degree. The amount of see before is tremendously high. That also means for performance or everything. And that's actually true for nearly everything you do. So the camera is important. So what I try to do now is first do, and we without thinking about the logic and the ball and the pedal, we try to recreate this little scene and put a camera in and get a feeling about how big must the pedal be, how big is the scene, how big